Hello and welcome to New Mexico Rising. My name is Dan. You know, each and every week we bring you things from across the country to talk about right here in your neighborhood. And on this week's show, we got this.
There's a really famous zoo, the Gladys Porter Zoo, where you can feed a giraffe.
When I learned about the invasive python crisis in Florida, and so I had to go check it out. So I went on a trip, I went on a hunt, caught a 9-foot python, and that was it. I knew that this was my calling.
We love Albuquerque.
Yes,
we love it.
Albuquerque.
That's where we shot.
All of that and more right here on New Mexico Rising. Do you ever scroll through travel reels and think, how do these people afford this? Or better yet, how do I pull something off like that without getting lost and overpaying? Well, good news. Today, we got a guy who literally makes a living turning wild travel dreams into reality. You've probably seen Justin Walter hosting Around the World in 80 Seconds or on shows like Global Child and Explore This. He's rafted rivers, hiked glaciers, swum with sharks, and still remembers how to pack a carry-on. So he's got all the smart tips for making your next trip pretty epic, whether it's once-in-a-lifetime escape or a solid weekend getaway. So let's welcome him to the show and give us all the insights on how to do it ourselves. Justin, how are you, buddy?
Good, Dan. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, so you've done some pretty wild adventures. What do you think is the most recent trip that totally blew your mind?
Well, I'm all about turning your bucket list dreams into reality, and I did just that with an epic trip around the world recently, exploring the one-of-a-kind Galápagos Islands in Ecuador with the wildlife that blew my mind. You can see it right there. And then paragliding over the stunning city of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and then falling in love with a local family in Japan doing a cultural immersion homestay. I absolutely loved all of these adventures, and I'm all about inspiring people to travel with connection.
And for people that are just like getting started on summer planning, what do you think is your, I know this is a basic question, what's your like number one tip for people?
Yeah, so with summer around the corner, take those dreams and turn them into reality. And I recommend, when I was in Ecuador, I stayed at a Wyndham hotel, which I love. That's why I recommend Wyndham hotels and resorts with thousands of hotels nationwide, from Microtel and Days Inn to Super 8 and La Quinta. There's likely a hotel by Wyndham wherever summer takes you. Even better, the award-winning loyalty program at Wyndham Rewards is free to join. And right now, members can save up to 20% on their next trip. So head on over to wyndhamhotels.com.
Now let's talk about some of the strategy. What is like one smart travel move that most people tend to overlook?
I think a lot of people are afraid to travel with their jewelry. You don't have to be, and you don't have to leave it at home. So my tip is Jewelers Mutual. They offer broad coverage that goes with you wherever you travel in the world, and it's tailored specifically for jewelry. They're the only insurer with over 112 years of expertise dedicated to protecting jewelry, giving confidence that if jewelry is lost, stolen, or damaged, they will work with a jeweler of choice to get it repaired or replaced. So be safe, smart, and wear your favorite jewelry on your next trip. Go to jewelersmutual.com.
All right, that sounds a little more reliable than those little hotel room safes. Do you have a go-to destination you always recommend, or one that you're absolutely loving right now?
Yeah, this summer, Pure Michigan, I think, is the ideal slow travel destination for summer. It's where you can recharge and reconnect with family, friends, nature, and fresh farm-to-table flavors. Soak up the sun along the freshwater coast and explore award-winning hilltop wineries, fragrant lavender fields, and farmers markets full of local finds. When it comes to food, it's all about bold flavors and fresh produce at James Beard-nominated restaurants. So get inspired to fill your plate and fuel your soul at michigan.org.
So what's something seasoned travelers know that first-timers should probably be keeping in mind?
Yeah, keep up with your personal care and hygiene while you're on the road. That's why I recommend the Lifen Wave Special Electric Toothbrush. It gives you that super clean, just let the dentist feel, thanks to its unique dual action tech. It combines a 60-degree oscillation with 26,000 vibrations a minute. The battery lasts up to 50 hours, which is amazing for travel. It's also easy to pack. Plus, it comes in 6 fun colors like limited edition green and purple, and you can find it for under $90 at Amazon or lifentech.com.
All right, so where can people go to get more info, get inspired for some of their own adventures?
Yes, check out tipsontv.com.
Justin Walter, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
What would make someone quit their job to hunt pythons full time? Amy Siewe did just that, and now she's helped remove hundreds of these invasive predators from Florida. Today, she's sharing her story along with tips on safe towing for folks hitting the road this summer. Welcome, Amy.
Thanks for having me.
Amy, we have to start with your story. How did you become known as a python huntress?
Well, I tell you what, I have loved snakes and reptiles ever since I was a little kid. Like, why wasn't it dolphins or puppies or something normal? But it was snakes. And I was a real estate broker in Indianapolis when I learned about the invasive python crisis in Florida. And so I had to go check it out. So I went on a trip, I went on a hunt, caught a 9-foot python, and that was it. I knew that this was my calling. So instead of this being, a hobby, I could actually help Florida with this incredible crisis that they're having.
And you work in some pretty wild environments. How did tires and wheels help you stay safe when you're out hunting?
I do. Well, when it's 2 a.m. and I'm wrestling a 16-foot python, getting stuck in the mud is not an option. I can't afford to be that far away from people and help. So I have to make sure that I have the right tires on my truck and my trailer, because in those moments, I need to make sure that I'm 100% focused on that python.
You're also promoting National Trailer Safety Week with Kinda. What are your top tips for safe towing?
Yes, National Trailer Safety Week is next week. So I have 3 tips for you guys. First of all, have a pre-departure checklist. And on that, you should check your tire pressure, including on your spare. Check your lights and secure your cargo. A couple quick minutes can save a lot of trouble down the line. Second, load capacity. Know your RV or trailer's limits and do not exceed them. And third, you drive differently when you tow. So make sure that you maintain the proper following distance to give yourself plenty of stopping time.
And where can our viewers go for more information?
If you want more information about any of this, you can go to americanatire.com, and there's all kinds of fun stuff on the website for you.
Amy, thanks for joining us today.
Okay, have a great one.
Long lines, layovers, and jet lag. No, not in 2025. Travelers are skipping the passport and heading somewhere closer to home. Whether it's bird watching on the Gulf Coast or taco trailing through Brownsville, South Texas is quietly becoming one of the year's most buzzed about destinations. So here's to share what's trending and where to go is Emmy Award-winning journalist Juliana Broste. Welcome to the show, Juliana. How are you, my friend? Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
All right. You got to talk about Texas this time. What are some of your favorite hidden gem spots in South Texas this year?
Well, I recently got back from the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas, and it was such a hidden gem. Just where Texan culture meets Mexican culture, and getting to play outdoors in South Padre Island, where there's year-round tropical, climate. I love the outdoor adventure. Brownsville is a hidden gem foodie spot, and McAllen, they have the comforts of a bigger city and so much international flair. So when you go to this area, you can stay on the Gulf Coast on the beach, or find a cool historic hotel like Casa de Palmas with a beautiful Spanish architecture.
So what do you think makes South Texas like a great under-the-radar destination, especially in 2025?
Yeah, it's hard to come by. Sometimes everything's on the internet. But for me, I was really surprised when I was in South Padre Island and I drove north and suddenly the road disappeared because the sand dunes were covering it. And that is where the horseback riding adventure begins. You can rent a horse and just enjoy the beauty of nature, sand dunes and waves, and wind in your face. It was really delightful. And just also, a lot of people want to see some exotic animals. In Brownsville, there's a really famous zoo, the Gladys Porter Zoo, where you can feed a giraffe. And one of my favorites, the Sea Turtle Hospital in South Padre Island, where they rehabilitate turtles and release them back into the wild. So it's so fun. You can get up close with the sea turtles.
And I'm a huge fan of food and art. What do you recommend?
Me too. Brownsville actually has an official taco trail. You can download the app and you can find all the great taco spots around the town. Birria tacos with house-made consomme. I am dreaming about eating this again. Micheladas. This surprised me though. There was pickles and gummy worms and a spicy chamoy sauce on top. That was really fun and tangy. Brunch at Jolie Petite. I recommend La Rêve, which is a French. This restaurant has a chef who just recently won the title for 2025 Texas James Beard Award semifinalist. So he's definitely bringing some attention to this region.
All right, I'm the boy with the taco tattoo, so I'm excited about a taco trail. So count me in for that, my friend. All right, where can we go for more information, maybe learn more about some of these destinations?
For more information, head on over to traveltexas.com. And I hope you can find all the tacos on the map for that taco tattoo. I love it.
I'm going to go on a taco feast, my friend. All right, where they can follow you and check out your adventures?
Yes, I'm Traveling Jules. So you can find me on Instagram and online at travelingjules.com. Lots of hidden gems. I love it.
Juliana Broste, thanks for joining me this morning.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
When your child is diagnosed with a brain tumor, life becomes very different. Liz Dominguez knows that firsthand with her son Gus, who is just 8 years old. She's joined by Dr. Matthew Cascio, a pediatric cancer expert working on newer, more hopeful treatments for families like hers. We are so glad to have you both here today.
Thank you for having us.
Dr. Cascio, what is PLGG and how serious is it?
PLGG is an acronym for pediatric low-grade glioma. It's a type of brain tumor. It's the most common brain tumor in children, and it affects 1,700 children as a new diagnosis every single year. I have this conversation with many families as to how serious it is, and it can be very, very serious, largely because nothing is supposed to grow in the brain except for the brain.
And what are some of the newer treatment options for kids today?
Traditionally, we've treated kids with surgery, radiation, and traditional chemotherapies, but some of the more innovative treatments that we now have available target these tumors through identifiable genetic changes in the tumor that cause it to develop and grow. One such gene is the BRAF gene, and the majority of these low-grade gliomas have this BRAF gene mutation. And drugs like Ojemda specifically target these tumors through these abnormal changes.
Are there any common side effects from those treatments?
Children could experience side effects such as rash or liver problems. In the largest clinical trial that has ever been run on children with pediatric low-grade gliomas with these BRAF changes included Ojemda. And in that trial, about 7% had to stop taking the drug because of bleeding in the tumor or because of slowing of the growth.
And what kind of progress are you seeing in patients?
We're seeing very good progress. Children tolerate these treatments very, very well. They're easily taking, specifically Ojemda. You can take it just once a week. And most children respond to this therapy with shrinkage of the tumor.
And Liz, how did you first find out Gus had a brain tumor?
When Gus was just 2, he started having some problems walking and maintaining his balance. His father and I noticed he stopped running. And then one day he just dropped. He was standing there playing and he just hit the floor. And we thought, this is not normal and something is going on. So we took him to our pediatrician, who encouraged us to go and get an MRI done. And that's how we discovered that he had a brain tumor that was growing.
And how's this affected you emotionally as a mom?
It's hard. This is not a journey I wish on anybody. And it's certainly not one that you think is going to impact you when you first become a parent. We've gone and done therapy. We have, relied on our support network of extended family and friends to get through this. And we advocate. We have conversations like this that get the news out there that, these brain tumors impact kids and, kids deserve better.
And what would you say to other families going through this?
I'd recommend, if you're given a chance to perform genetic testing on the tumor, to do that. It was an option for us 6 years ago, and for many new patients, it may still be an option. Definitely accept that if your oncologist recommends it, because that's what's given us opportunities as our journey has taken a much longer route to finding something that might work for our son, and avoid doing something like radiation, which would be for his tumor and location not the greatest option that we want to be able to take. And I'd also recommend having those conversations with your oncology team. Ask those questions. Don't think that any question is stupid. They've heard everything, and they're there to support you and help you find ways to manage the emotional toll that this takes.
And Dr. Cascio, where can our viewers go to learn more?
They can learn more about low-grade gliomas treatments at day1bio.com or ogenda.com, and that'll give them information about Ogenda and all of its side effects as well.
Thanks, you two, for joining us today.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
What does it take to stare down a 1-ton bull and hold your ground 8 seconds at a time? In Not Her First Rodeo, we follow the real lives of elite lady bull riders, women who are rewriting the rules of rodeo and risking it all for the win. As the heart of it is 4-time world champion Jordan Halverson, who's not just riding, she's basically leading a movement. She's here today to talk about the new docuseries, the grit it takes to make it, and why this really isn't her first rodeo. Welcome to the show, Jordan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Rodeo has always fascinated me, and actually, I have my own belt buckle. I did ride a bull once. I fell off in the first few seconds, so this is basically a participation trophy for bull riding. So, hey, you're a 4-time world champion. Can you take us back to the beginning, like the days that you first started out? What made you get into the bull in the first place?
It honestly for me started by chance. I grew up riding hunter jumper horses, a little bit wild, a little bit smaller than some of the other riders. So I was actually riding naughty horses and ponies. And we had a buddy that said, "Hey, what do you think about riding a bull?" And I obviously said yes. And yeah, same thing. I fell off very fast the first time, but it was just more of a bucket list thing for me. And that's how I started. And I was hooked and kept going back week after week after that.
Yeah, I told the guy, how do I get a buckle? And he's like, well, you have to ride a bull. I was like, come on, man. I was trying to catch a greased pig, go lasso a sheep or something. Because I grew up in ranches and stuff with my family. So they stuck me on a bull. He's like, if you get on this bull in a rodeo, we'll give you a buckle. So they did this whole participation trophy thing. So I get it. I love it. This show really captures the risk and realities of the sport. What do you hope viewers take away from watching your story?
I hope they take away that, you can do anything in life. Don't be afraid to follow your dreams, push through any kind of boundaries there are and just live a life that you want to live.
And you also started your own all-women's bull riding league. What inspired that and how has that actually grown?
So they actually used to have women's rough stock riding events in rodeo, a long time ago, early 2000s and prior to that. And so when I had learned about that several years after I started riding, we had been kind of working towards bringing that back that they used to have for women to be able to compete against other women in the sport of bull riding.
And how do you go about mentally preparing doing bull riding each time? I was scared as hell, but how do you go about doing it because you know what's at stake?
I just think about the challenge, think about what I've got to work through. And for me, all the preparation that goes in beforehand helps me mentally. If I feel physically ready, mentally ready, it helps every time I go to get on.
And the show also highlights, it's not just a sport, but kind of like a sisterhood. What has the community of women in bull riding meant to you?
We all have our different struggles and you can always learn something from another woman, whatever they're going through. And, whether that be in our riding or in our everyday life, we've just learned to, help each other out and grow as we grow in this sport.
Jordan Halverson, thanks for joining me this morning. You got to catch Not Her First Rodeo. It's a new 6-part docuseries from ABC News Studios, premiering on Freeform with 2 back-to-back episodes. Then you can binge the whole full series starting Friday, June 6th on Hulu. Thanks for joining me this morning, Jordan.
Thanks for having me.
So what happens when your heart keeps you from doing what you love? That's what John faced with a condition called OHCM, a chronic and progressive heart disease that sidelined his passion for pickleball. But with the right diagnosis and treatment, he's back in the game. So joining us today are John and Dr. Payal Kohli, a Harvard-trained cardiologist, to talk about OHCM and how the treatment can make a big difference. Welcome to the show, you two.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for having us.
All right, can you walk us through what OHCM actually is and how it affects someone's kind of daily life?
So obstructive hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, Dan, is a genetic condition that changes the structure of the heart. So the heart is a pump that pumps blood to our body all day long. And when you have OHCM, the heart becomes stiffer, so it doesn't fill normally with blood. So instead of being a water balloon, it's like a lead balloon. And then the hallway that the blood uses to leave the heart becomes actually narrowed because of thickness of the heart muscle. And so the blood's not getting out as it needs to. So you can imagine when you exercise, you need more blood to get up faster to your organs. You start to have symptoms and blood's not getting to the brain. You feel lightheaded, dizzy, or you feel like you're going to faint. It's not getting to the heart and lungs. You feel short of breath. You feel chest pressure. You can also have palpitations. So it can cause a variety of symptoms, affect people's day-to-day lives, in fact, such that they can't even walk to the mailbox or take care of their dog or go up a flight of stairs. And it's a condition that we thankfully do have a lot of treatments for. So certainly surgery is an option to kind of cut out the thickness of the hallway, but we really reserve that option if people failed medications. We give medications like beta blockers that allow more time for the blood to get out. So that's one way to relieve that obstruction. But we also have FDA-approved medications like Camzyos or mavacamten that actually decrease the force with which the heart squeezes. So the heart's not kind of closing in on itself, not collapsing, and that hallway's not closing in. It has more time to allow the blood to get out. And so by giving patients these medications, it's important to make sure that you're not making the heart too weak, because if you're decreasing the force of contraction, then you want to make sure that the heart is not getting too weak and you're not developing heart failure. So we do check these patients serially over time with echocardiograms, which are ultrasounds of the heart. But this condition is called the Great Masquerader because so many people can actually miss it, both patients and doctors alike. And so that's why John and I are here to raise awareness about the disease. And we're working with Bristol Myers Squibb to also raise awareness about the treatments as well.
And for you, John, what were some of your first symptoms and when did you realize something that wasn't really right?
Right. So, I mean, exercise, Dan, has always been a big part of my life. I was a college tennis player, and my OHCM symptoms really became evident when I was in my 50s. I began getting dizzy during workouts, and I also started to get faint if I exerted myself. So it became difficult for me to go on, like Dr. Kohli said, a simple walk without having to stop and catch my breath. These symptoms continue to interfere with one of the things that I valued most, and that's my ability to stay active. And so about 3 years ago, I went to see another cardiologist, and I was diagnosed with OHCM. My doctor prescribed Camzyos to treat my symptomatic OHCM. And within a few months, it made a real difference in my symptoms. So today, my symptoms like shortness of breath and feeling faint are much better. And I'm competing in amateur pickleball tournaments now that I thought I would never be able to participate in again. And of course, others may experience different results, but if you're experiencing symptoms like this, if your listeners are, I really encourage them to talk to their doctor because proper diagnosis and Camzyos, it certainly made a difference in my symptomatic OHCM.
And Dr. Kohli, what are some of the treatment options available for people with OHCM?
So, as we talked about, surgery, certainly an option. Those medications like beta blockers or calcium channel blockers, and then Camzyos or mavacamten. But these are mainly to treat the symptoms of obstructive HCM. There are also clinical trials ongoing to see if we can treat the consequences of the disease, because if the blood's not moving forward, it's moving backwards. And so we're looking at heart failure medicines like SGLT2 inhibitors to help protect the heart from developing heart failure, as well as treating some of the electrical complications. Because when you're putting stress on the heart muscle, the electrical cables that run through the walls of that muscle can start to get stretched out, and you can be at risk for electrical problems like arrhythmias, even life-threatening arrhythmias causing sudden cardiac death where the heart just suddenly stops. So for those patients, we think about defibrillators as a treatment option as well. Just in case the heart stops, there's an insurance policy, a defibrillator there to sort of shock it back into rhythm.
And where can people go for more information if they do get help or if they're noticing some of these symptoms?
If you're noticing the symptoms, don't blow them off. Don't attribute it to old age or being out of shape, and don't certainly dial back your exercise. go talk to your doctor so that you can figure out what's going on, whether it's OHCM or something else. But also check out camseyes.com because it has a ton of information about the disease, about its treatment, as well as some of the symptoms that can manifest.
And thank you, too, for joining me this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Have you ever dreamed of high-speed getaways, dusty back roads, and that 1970s crime world where danger is just a pit stop away? You know, Max's new series, Duster, might be your next obsession. From Emmy winner J.J. Abrams and showrunner LaToya Morgan, Duster stars Josh Holloway as a getaway driver trying to outrun his past, and Rachel Hilson, a trailblazing FBI agent who's got her sights on taking down the dangerous crime syndicate. And come on, man, we got them both here to talk all about it. Welcome to the show, you two.
Thank you so much.
All right, Josh, you play a getaway driver in the 1970s, Southwest. What kind of drew you to this role, and what makes Duster different than some of the other crime dramas out there?
Wow, everything drew me to this role. First of all, it was JJ and LaToya Morgan, and I was like, that's incredible on its own. It's such a rich era to explore. The 70s, just with fashion and music and cars and everything. It was just a dream come true to get a phone call like this. I'm like, absolutely, I'm in 100%.
And Rachel, your character is an FBI agent in the 70s. What kind of preparation or mindset did it take to try to bring Nina to life?
Yeah, it did take some prep. I had the opportunity to speak to several former agents, a couple of which were Black women who joined in the early 80s. So getting their insights was invaluable. I read a bunch of books. I watched a bunch of movies, read all about Nixon and the Panthers just before and their their conflicts with the FBI and the Black community's conflicts with the FBI, and just sort of tried to get a well-rounded picture of where I was coming from and where I was in 1972. Yeah.
And there's a heck of a lot of grit and style in the show. What kind of world are viewers stepping into when they pretty much hit play on this?
Wow. It's kind of like a modern Western. It feels like it's like this. The desert is a character in itself. The car moves you between scenes, so it's got this high octane driven pace, and then it's so character driven. You never know what character you're going to run into, so it's just like that. It's like a Pulp Fiction, lock, stock, two smoking barrels type adventure.
Yeah. There was something that JJ said, I think a couple weeks ago that was like, it's sort of like what a show that was made in the 70s would look like if, it was just elevated a little more.
If it was done good.
If it was done well.
Josh, Rachel, thanks for joining me this morning. Duster is streaming now on Max with new episodes dropping every Thursday through July 3rd. So check it out at max.com or search Duster on your Max app to start watching. Josh, Rachel, thanks for joining me this morning, my friends.
Thank you, Dan.
And that's it for New Mexico Rising. I want to thank you for tuning in and checking out the show. If you actually want to be on the show, just email me. That's newmexicorising@gmail.com. We're on social media like Instagram and Facebook. You could also follow us on YouTube so you can like, comment, subscribe. All that stuff they say on YouTube all the time helps us out too. And until next week, that was New Mexico Rising.